Imagine stepping into a time machine and traveling back to the 20th century, a period of massive upheaval, where the fate of nations was decided on battlefields, economies rose and collapsed like waves, and revolutionary ideas shook the very foundations of society. From two devastating world wars to the creation of nuclear weapons, the rise and fall of empires, the birth of technological innovations, and the sweeping social movements that changed the way we view race, gender, and politics, the 20th century was the most transformative era in human history. It was an age defined by change, conflict, and extraordinary progress. It was a dawn of the 1900s, a world still entrenched in monarchies and empires, where horse-drawn carriages outnumbered automobiles, and airplanes existed only in the dreams of innovators. People were largely divided by geography, culture, and class. But beneath this seemingly peaceful surface, tension simmered. Nations were poised for conflict, economic systems were about to be tested, and technology was on the verge of revolutionizing life forever. In this era, the 20th century, humanity would experience both the heights of triumph and the depths of tragedy, shaping the world as we know it today. The early 20th century, an age of empires and war. The 20th century commenced amidst the grandeur of vast empires, particularly the British Empire, which was the largest in history, spanning 5 continents. It was a time when monarchies and colonial rule dictated the lives of millions. The Industrial Revolution had already set the stage for dramatic changes in technology, transportation, and communication, allowing for quicker military mobilization and enhanced global trade. However, the peace of this era was fragile, with underlying tensions simmering in Europe. The early 1900s witnessed a complex interplay of alliances and rivalries. The Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy faced off against the Triple Entente of France, Russia, and Britain. Nationalism surged as countries vied for power, territory, and prestige, leading to a volatile atmosphere. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in June 1914 triggered a chain reaction of events, propelling the world into World War I. The conflict was marked by trench warfare, where soldiers endured horrific conditions and new military technologies transformed the battlefield. Machine guns, tanks, and chemical weapons brought unprecedented destruction and loss of life. The war left an indelible mark, with approximately 16 million deaths and countless wounded, as nations grappled with the consequences of their militaristic pursuits. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, aimed to bring lasting peace, but ultimately sowed the seeds for future conflicts. The punitive measures imposed on Germany fostered resentment and economic hardship, creating fertile ground for extremist ideologies. Meanwhile, the Russian Revolution of 1917 resulted in the establishment of the Soviet Union, fundamentally altering the political landscape of Europe and introducing a new form of governance that challenged capitalist ideals. As the world struggled to recover from the war, economic instability became prevalent. Hyperinflation in Germany and the Great Depression of the 1930s further destabilized the already fragile international order. The early 20th century was thus characterized by the dramatic shifts of empires, the impact of war, and the emergence of new ideologies that would define the rest of the century. The Roaring Twenties and the Great Depression. Following the devastation of World War I, the 1920s emerged as a period of profound change and exuberance, often referred to as the Roaring Twenties. This decade represented a cultural and economic renaissance, particularly in the United States, as soldiers returned home to a society ripe with opportunity and innovation. The economic boom saw unprecedented growth, driven by technological advancements, consumerism, and a booming stock market. Jazz music flourished, symbolizing the liberation of the era, as flappers and speakeasies became cultural icons of the time. The Harlem Renaissance marked a cultural awakening, celebrating African American art, literature, and music, challenging racial stereotypes and promoting a sense of pride. The arts thrived as writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald and Langston Hughes captured the spirit of the age, while Hollywood transformed into a powerhouse of entertainment, enchanting audiences with films that celebrated the allure of modern life. However, the prosperity of the Roaring Twenties was built on shaky ground. Economic disparities were widespread, with wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, while many struggled to make ends meet. The financial markets, driven by speculation, became increasingly unstable, setting the stage for a catastrophic downturn. The stock market crash of October 1929 marked the beginning of the Great Depression, a global economic crisis that would last for a decade. The consequences were devastating. Banks failed, businesses shuttered, and unemployment soared to unprecedented levels. In the United States, breadlines and shantytowns emerged as millions lost their livelihoods, and the American dream seemed increasingly unattainable. The impact of the Great Depression reverberated worldwide, leading to political instability in many countries. In Germany, economic despair fueled the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, who promised national revival and scapegoated minorities for the nation's woes. Meanwhile, countries across Europe struggled to maintain their democratic institutions as they faced social unrest and authoritarian movements. The Roaring Twenties and the Great Depression thus framed a critical era in history, reflecting the dichotomy between cultural flourishing and economic despair. The lessons learned from this tumultuous period would shape future policies, encouraging governments to adopt more proactive measures to safeguard economies and address societal disparities. Rise of totalitarianism and World War II. As the world emerged from the Great Depression, the political landscape shifted dramatically, giving rise to totalitarian regimes that promised stability and strength in the face of chaos. The economic turmoil and social discontent created fertile ground for leaders who exploited nationalistic sentiments to gain power. In Italy, Benito Mussolini established a fascist government in 1922, emphasizing militarism and expansionism. Mussolini's rise was closely watched by other disillusioned nations, particularly Germany. In Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party capitalized on the widespread discontent, promising to restore Germany's former glory. By 1933, Hitler had become chancellor and swiftly consolidated power, dismantling democratic institutions and promoting an aggressive agenda characterized by extreme nationalism and anti-Semitism. Propaganda played a crucial role in shaping public opinion, as the regime sought to unify the nation under a single ideology, blaming Jews and communists for Germany's economic struggles. The consequences of these authoritarian regimes were dire. Both Fascist Italy and Nazi Germany pursued aggressive expansionist policies, leading to tensions across Europe. The Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939, served as a precursor to World War II, with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy supporting Francisco Franco's nationalists against a democratically elected Republican government. On September 1, 1939, Hitler's invasion of Poland marked the official beginning of World War II, plunging the globe into another catastrophic conflict. The war quickly expanded as Germany formed alliances with Italy and Japan, creating the Axis powers. The Allies, led by Britain, France, and later the United States and the Soviet Union, rallied to confront this growing threat. World War II was characterized by unprecedented levels of destruction and human suffering. The Holocaust stands as one of the most horrific events in human history, with 6 million Jews systematically murdered under Hitler's regime. Meanwhile, battles raged across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific, with significant turning points such as the Battle of Stalingrad and the D-Day invasion. The war concluded in 1945, leaving an estimated 60 million dead and vast portions of Europe and Asia in ruins. The aftermath of World War II reshaped international relations and the geopolitical landscape, establishing the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers and setting the stage for the Cold War. The Cold War and Decolonization. With the end of World War II, the world found itself in the grips of a new geopolitical struggle, the Cold War. The stark division between the capitalist West, led by the United States, and the communist East, led by the Soviet Union, created a tense and polarized global environment. The ideological conflict transcended national borders, impacting political, social, and economic dynamics worldwide. The United States emerged from the war with unparalleled military and economic strength, adopting a policy of containment to prevent the spread of communism. The Marshall Plan, initiated in 1948, aimed to rebuild war-torn Europe and thwart communist influence by promoting economic stability and democratic governance. However, this strategy also fueled tensions, as the Soviet Union viewed these actions as a direct threat to its sphere of influence. Simultaneously, the Soviet Union sought to expand its ideology through the establishment of communist regimes in Eastern Europe. The Iron Curtain descended, dividing the continent into Eastern and Western blocs, and leading to the formation of NATO and the Warsaw Pact as military alliances. The Berlin Wall, erected in 1961, became a powerful symbol of this division, representing the broader ideological and physical separation between East and West. In addition to this ideological struggle, the post-war era also witnessed a wave of decolonization across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Countries previously under colonial rule began to assert their independence, often inspired by the principles of self-determination and anti-colonial sentiment. India gained independence from Britain in 1947, followed by a wave of liberation movements in Africa throughout the 1950s and 1960s. However, the process of decolonization was fraught with challenges. In many cases, the withdrawal of colonial powers left a power vacuum, leading to internal strife and conflict. Countries like Vietnam and Algeria faced brutal wars for independence, while newly established nations grappled with the legacies of colonialism and the complexities of nation-building. Technological and social revolutions. The mid-20th century was not only marked by political tensions and conflicts, but also by significant technological advancements and social revolutions. The period witnessed rapid innovation, fundamentally altering how people lived, worked, and interacted. The space race, ignited by Cold War rivalry, became a defining feature of this era, showcasing human ingenuity and ambition. In 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth, a milestone that stunned the world and intensified the competition between the superpowers. The United States responded with a renewed commitment to space exploration, culminating in the Apollo 11 mission, where astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the moon in 1969. This achievement symbolized not just technological prowess, but also the potential for human exploration and discovery. Simultaneously, the technological advancements of the time transformed everyday life. The invention of the television revolutionized communication and entertainment, bringing news and cultural programming into homes across the globe. The proliferation of automobiles reshaped urban landscapes, while advancements in medicine, including the development of vaccines and antibiotics, significantly improved public health and longevity. However, these technological transformations also gave rise to social upheaval. The civil rights movement in the United States emerged as a powerful force, challenging systemic racism and inequality. Activists like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X fought for social justice and equality, drawing attention to the injustices faced by African Americans. The movement galvanized support and ultimately led to significant legislative changes, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Additionally, the feminist movement gained momentum during this period, advocating for women's rights and equality. The publication of Betty Friedan's The Feminist Mystique in 1963 sparked a national conversation about women's roles in society and the need for gender equality. Women began to challenge traditional norms, demanding equal pay, reproductive rights, and opportunities in education and the workforce. Technological and social revolutions of the mid-20th century reshaped society, fostering a spirit of activism and change. The contemporary era, globalization and challenges. Entering the 21st century, the world faced an array of challenges and opportunities shaped by globalization and rapid technological advancements. The interconnectedness of nations became increasingly pronounced as trade, communication, and cultural exchange transcended borders. Globalization fostered economic growth, lifted millions out of poverty, and facilitated the sharing of ideas and innovations. However, this newfound interconnectedness also highlighted significant disparities and challenges. Economic globalization often resulted in wealth concentration amongst a select few, exacerbating income inequality both within and between nations. The gap between developed and developing countries became more pronounced, prompting debates over fair trade practices and the responsibilities of multinational corporations. The 20th century was a time of unprecedented transformation, marked by the highs of human achievement and the lows of devastating conflict. The century began with empires dominating the globe and ended with the world more connected, yet more complex than ever before. Technological advancements, social movements, and political ideologies reshaped humanity's trajectory in ways that are still unfolding today. As we reflect on the 20th century, we see a world that learned, grew, and suffered through the consequences of its own inventions and ambitions. The events of those 100 years continue to shape the way we live in the 21st century, offering both cautionary tales and inspiring lessons for the future. The rapid evolution of societies, the rise and fall of ideologies, and the relentless pursuit of progress make the 20th century a defining chapter in the story of human civilization.